Hello, welcome to another episode of Sudoku and Variants. Sorry I took 2 months off. I had to. I was dealing with a mouse issue and I wanted to make sure that the next time I had a mouse issue, I wouldn't have to take any time off. And so I decided to deal with a lot of clutter and get rid of stuff, which is why it took me 2 months. Now, what we have here. Today we're solving a Twodoku Sudoku variant. You'll notice that in the middle of the puzzle we see four gold squares. This is where two 9x9 grids overlap. And here. And as usual, I'll always lose my place. I will try to get better at that. This means this means the 7, 8, and 6 in this row is in both this 9x9 grid and in this 9x9 grid. Looking only at each 9x9 grid by itself, the numbers 1 through 9 cannot repeat in any row or in any column. This fact gives us a very interesting and exciting solution help. Look at the 2's in the fourth row. Notice that in the left 9x9 grid, we have a 2 here, and the right 9x9 grid, we have a 2 here, where it is outside the left 9x9 grid, because this is the end here. Because we cannot repeat any numbers within a 9x9 grid, we have to have the 2 for the right grid outside of the left grid. Because we cannot repeat any numbers, this is helpful. This means that this 1 here in the fourth row must go here in the left grid in this empty square. And that this 9 from the left grid must go here in this empty right square. The other squares being filled with numbers tells us this. If we were to look at the next row, we see a 3 and 4 in both the left and right 9x9 grids. This does not help us. We move on to the sixth row. We see a 7 and 5 in the left grid and an 8 in the right grid. This means we must put a 7 and a 5 in some order over here and the 8 over on the left side. Because the 8 only has one empty box it can go in, and I will put it there. Put it here. Now the 7 and 5 goes over here. Go through here. But we have to use cross hatching to figure out which number goes where. We look at the second column from the right and see a 7. This means that the 7 cannot go here. we we will then put the 5 here and the 7 here. I continue down looking at each row one at a time to put in the obvious numbers. The next row we see a 5 and a 3 on the left side. On the right side we have a 3, so we ignore it and settle on the 5. We see a 5 just above one of the blank squares, so we know where we must put a 5, so we do not repeat a number in any column. The next row, we have a 9, 8, and 2 on the right side, and only a 8 and 2 on the left side. We know that a 9 goes here. The last row with both a left and right grid has a 4 and 7 on the right side, and nothing on the left side. I will look at each column on the left side to see if I can determine where the 4 or 7 can go. I see that the third column is both a 4 and 7, so I know that this box here cannot take a 4 or 7. I looked at the first column and found a 7, so I know I can not put a 7 here. I put a 4 in the first empty square and then a 7 in the next square. I also make a quick check and see the 4, so I know I didn't misread anything. Now I will look at the columns. There will be a top 9 by 9 grid and a bottom 9 by 9 grid. I will start from the far right. Where the first overlapping column exists. I notice a 2 on top and a 9 and 8 on the bottom. This means I must put a 2 in this only empty square. And that I must put a 9 and 8 up here in some order. I look at the first row and see an 8. This tells me that a 9 must go here because it is the only other number I am working on right now is the 9 and 8. This means that the other square must take the 8, as no other number can go there. Remember, because we are dealing with overlapping 9 by 9 grids, we must put certain numbers above and below the overlapping area so that both 9 by 9 grids will have the numbers 1 through 9 without repeating. The second column from the right gives us a 7 and 1 on top and a 1 and 4 on the bottom. I don't need to worry about the 1 as it's in twice. I will then look at the 7 and put it in the only empty square below and put the 4 in the only empty square above. The third column over, I have a 5 and 6 on top and a 3 on the bottom. Because I only have one empty square on top, I just put in the 3. I then look at the bottom two rows where the empty squares are to see where the 5 and the 6 goes. Again, I am using the cross hatching technique, a technique I find the most useful in any Sudoku. I see that a 6 is in this row and a 5 is in this row, so I know where to put the 5 and the 6. The fifth column from the left, let's start over. The sixth column from the left, I have a 2, 4, and 7. I look at the bottom and notice I am only missing the 2. I put it in. The fifth column from the left has an 8 and 9. The bottom has a 9 only. I then look at the third row from the very bottom, and look for a 8 or a 9. I look for the 8 and not the 9. I see the 8, so I know I cannot put an 8 here. I put the 8 down here instead. Because this column already has a 9 and it is in this bottom 3 by 3 box, I cannot put another 9 here. Now we do not know what that third number is yet, so we move on. The fourth row has a 6 and a 5, and the the fourth column has a 6 and a 5, and the bottom only has a 5. We will then look for the 6 and do see it here. and not here. We put in in the 6. Now that we have filled in all the easy numbers, we look for other givens, as I call them. Let's look for all the 3 by 3 grids where only one empty square is found. Count the numbers in order until you get to the missing number, and then double check to be sure the other numbers aren't the number you thought was missing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I move on to the far left side and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put in 6, 7, 8, 9. I am not seeing any more, so we'll go to the very top row. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, put in 5. 6, 7, 8, 9. Just because I put in a number where it already existed in the same row or column or box. This way, I catch those silly mistakes right off the bat. I am going to move down to the bottom 3 by 3 grid on the left side. I will count 1 and try to find the 1. I am looking inside the box, but also in the row and column. In the rows and columns. I put the 1 in here and then find the other missing number here, which is the 6. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, put in 6, and count 7, 8, 9. Done. I noticed that these first 3 columns only have one missing number in each column. I will count and then put them in. 1, 2, put the 2 in. Move over to the next column. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If you have brain damage, I highly recommend you count all the numbers to be sure you aren't missing something obvious. I normally do that every single time, but because I'm making a tutorial on a Sudoku that is more advanced, I'm not going to do that every single time. I move on to the third column and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, put it in. And move on. To the far right side. The second column in from the right, starting with 9, 3, 5. I count 1, 2, and see it is missing. I look across. At each row. No 2 in this row. I see a 2 here, and that 2 is within the right 9 by 9 grid. This means I cannot put a 2 here. So I put the 2 down here and move on. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is missing. I put it in and make sure no other 6 is in that row or 3 by 3 box. Notice that this 3 is in the left 9 by 9 grid, but not in the right 9 by 9 grid. So that 3 does not violate rules here, which is why we can put our 3 here. We notice that one square is empty and that the first number we count is 1, and that is missing. I put in the 1 and move on. I notice that this bottom 3 by 3 grid is also missing only one number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is missing. I quickly double check my work and see no other 5s conflicting or conflicting and move on. What I mean is that I do not see 2 5s in the same row or column or box. Conflicting might be a word some of my viewers do not know. Because I am on the bottom, I am going to continue and move over to the far left square in the very bottom. I count 1 and see no 1. I look in the rows and still see no 1s. I keep counting 2, 3. I do not see a 3. I also do not see a 3 in any column. Now I look at the very top of these columns and guess that they are also missing a 1 and 3. They are. I move on then. I will look at the fourth row. I count 1, 2, missing 3, missing 4, missing 5. And because these numbers are in both grids where the left 9 by 9 grid and the right 9 by 9 grid overlap, I know that I have to look at the rows to determine where each number goes. Now, to remind myself, I am looking at the 3, 4, and 5. I had so much problems typing that I kicked out the numbers. I am laughing at myself. Okay, 3. Do I see a 3 in any column that has an empty square in the fourth row? I see a 3 in the last column with the empty square. So I know this square here cannot take a 3. I will look at this square and see if this row has a 4. It does, so I know the 5, the only other missing number, goes here. I will then look at the next empty square and look for a 4 in the column. I see a 4, so I know that I cannot put a 4 here. I put the 3 here instead, and the 4 here. Now the next row has 5 empty squares in a row. I am missing the 1, 2, 5, 7, and 8. I noticed that the right box has an 8 and the left box has the 7. This tells me that I must put an 8 on the left and the 7 on the right. I look at column 5 and look at the column for an 8. I see one, so then put the 8 in the next box. We now have the 1, 2, and 4. Whoops. Oops, I am wrong. I see the 4. Rolling for laughter on me. Okay, we are clearly not missing the 4. This is why I double check myself, folks. We are missing the 5 though. So I look at each column for a 5. I notice something really cool. Look at this square and row here. Notice it already has a 5 in that row. This means that we cannot put a 5 here. Or here. Obviously, because we already have 5s in those boxes, we still can't put a 5 there. But if you are working on a harder Sudoku whereby you can't figure it out, look at the row to see if there is a number there that can help you rule out numbers. Now, because a 5 can't go there, and because we see 5s in the other columns, here and here, plus that last 5 is in the box. We know the 5 goes here. That leaves us with 1, 2, and 7 left to place. We see that the middle column cannot take a 7 and the far right column cannot take a 2. And that the middle column cannot take a 1. We must put a 2 here as we are only missing a 1, 2, and a 7. We cannot tell where the 1 and 7 is placed yet, so we move on. The next row is missing a 1, a 2 in the first box, we see a 2 here, so we know we must put a 2 here and a 1 here. Moving on over, we are missing the 3 and 4. We look at the first column here. I see a 3, which means we must put the 4 here and 3 here. Moving on down, we look at this box here. Here, it is the 3, 6. It is the 7th row from the top. We are missing a 4, 7, and 8. Now this box is missing a 4 but has a 7 and 8. This means we must put the 4 here. We then look at columns 8 and 9 and we see a 7 here. So know that we must put a 8 in this column instead. and the 7 in the last square. Let's look at the let's look at the ninth row. We are missing a 2 and 6. I see a 2 in that first box. So put a 6 here and a 2 there. This is where it gets really fun because we are nearly done. Notice that in that bottom square, that bottom 3 by 3 grid, we are missing a 1 and a 3. We still cannot determine where they go. We look at the other missing numbers in the square, I should say, in the 3 by 3 grid above it, and find we are missing a 3 and 5. This will tell us where the 1 and 3 go in the bottom grid. We look at that bottom grid and notice where that 5 sits. This means we cannot put a 5 here. Because the only other missing number is a 3, I put it in and put the 5 in here. This means that down here I must put a 1 here and a 3 here. And then way up here, the 1 goes here and the 3 goes here. Remember that what numbers are in the very top 3 by 3 grid must also be put in the bottom 3 by 3 grid in the same column as in the same column. This is why we have 6, 1, 5 up here and 1, 5, 6 down here. We move on over and see that these 3 empty squares in a row is missing a 1, 4, and 6. We look at the first column in the 3 by 3 grid and see a 4 and 6. We put in the 1, 1. We look for the 4, find it, and put in the 6 here and the 4 there. And then finish it off. We see the we are missing the 1 and 7, and because a 1 is in that column, we put the 7 here and the 1 there. Notice that we are now done. If you were to count the numbers in each row in order, you will see that you are that you do not have any duplicates except where 2 9 by 9 grids overlap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And congratulations, you have solved an easy Sudoku. I plan on being consistent now on putting up Sudokus. Thank you for your patience in this matter, as I'm new to this and getting my acting gear. I also have a much cleaner home with less stuff. I had to go through boxes to look for mouse damage was the issue that took forever. Bye. Have a wonderful day.